What's going on, everyone? This is Sherry, and you are tuned into She Said What She Said, the podcast where we interview badass women and sometimes men in the sports world and beyond. And I realized I wore the wrong shirt. I wore a Spartan shirt from earlier this season because I'm leaving to go do a race in Montana on Friday, but I should have worn a Penn State shirt. This is an opportunity lost, and I apologize. Our guest tonight is someone that I have known for 20 plus years. Oh, goodness gracious. So we are going back into the Penn State track and field days. Our guest tonight is a two-time Big Ten shot put champion. I believe still the Penn State shot put indoor and outdoor school record holder. However, I was having a hard time downloading the record books, so I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure we still have them. And a U.S. Olympic trial qualifier as well. So talk about excelling on the field, on the field, not on the track, on the fields. But one thing too that I love about the athletes that I interview is I want to not just know like what you did, in college, right? What you did back in the day. I want to know, what are you doing now, right? How are you fulfilling new dreams? How are you making the world the better place? And our guest tonight is definitely, I would say, trying to make the world a better place. So they, after track career, went into the entertainment industry, doing camera work, entertainment production. We were fiddling with my lights, knows a lot more, and I feel good about my lighting because I had a pro. But now, and doing all of that, he's really gotten involved with his own community, and he is a co-founder of Queer Global. And I want to actually read the statement directly from their website because I think it's so important. We support and prioritize the people who are least represented in and outside of the rainbow umbrella. This is an organization that puts people of color, disability, size, education, location, and financial oppression first. To put it plainly, we are tired of people who look like Ellen and Anderson Cooper representing our community, getting first access to resources when it's so incredibly diverse and disenfranchised. I absolutely love this. It is a community that I am a huge supporter of. So I could not be more excited to have Deacon O'Connor on our show tonight. Hey!
Hey!
Yay!
What's
How
good?
are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. And you've moved. You were sitting down before, and we.
Yes. Yes, I'm down.
You know what? It's live. You want to take a little walk around the room? My cat's already made an appearance, so it's okay. However you want to do this.
No pets on my end.
But to fact check me, are you still the school record holder for indoor and outdoor shot put at Penn State?
I honestly don't know. I haven't kept up with it, to tell you the truth. I don't think I am the shot put record holder. Definitely not for, I think, outdoor. A young lady, I think she crushed it like within the past 5 years.
Okay. Well, I'll have to look because I was trying to download it and it wasn't.
It's really hard to find because we're right on the cusp of Google. So all of those facts, I'm not even sure if Google existed then. I remember we had this horrible search engine called Dogpile.
Oh my God, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, it's all of my school records are gone. they were like half of, those relay records were pretty much gone by the time I left. One, we held on to it for a little bit, like maybe a year or two. So I actually, when Connie was posting some of her old school records and all of her like All-American things, I like go in the room.
Does
like,
she have
hey,
a database for them strictly just for her records?
Honestly,
because that's a lot.
She was, I think, 11-time All-American. Like her shit is like so much. But because they gave us those, and they don't even have the record wall there anymore.
Oh, it's gone.
We had like those big pieces of they just
the wood with the gold rating.
Tossed it.
I have one of those.
Okay, so one of your when you probably broke your own record.
No, the weight record got broken. It wasn't that
Right,
significant.
with
I mean,
by Jen, right?
I believe so, but they
Yeah.
mailed it to my parents, so they
Oh,
have
they
it.
mailed it. Okay, I picked mine up in State College and I carried it on an airplane.
I would
They're
have had to go back. So
like, what is this? What is this? School record? That is. Yeah, and they also painted over all of our bricks in the locker room.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So for people that are non-Penn Staters, our locker room at Penn State, if you won a Big Ten title, you got a certain color brick. If
Yeah,
you All American, you got a different color brick, and if you're NCAA champion, you got the gold brick. So we had and it was like a big decision when you won Big Tens of like where you're going to put your brick, like how are you going to do this? For you, obviously, you had multiple. So like, are we going to go over here and go over there? You could put them
yeah.
together. No, no,
Oh
it's gone.
man,
It's
that's
gone.
awful.
I know, but you know.
I guess there were so many. It probably looked crazy in there.
Okay, so Clem is fact checking us. Third now, Deacon overall.
I'm
Thank
third
you, Clem.
overall, bronze.
Okay, you know
What's
if
up,
we
Clem?
if we look at like how the sport has evolved in these past like 20 years of like how insane these people are, the fact that yours stayed around for so long is pretty badass.
It is kind of crazy. I'm
Yeah.
paying for it now, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, old
Body's
age.
body's like, yeah, what did you do to me?
Used up.
Oh, Clem is third now in the discus, so you guys have that in common. It's okay. I'm not even in the top 5 anymore, Clem. I held on to that for like I think 5 years. I held on to 5th, and then I was gone. So how did you get into shot put and track?
That is a hilarious story.
Yeah.
So track indoors freshman year, high school.
Hmm.
One of my best friends dragged me in. She's like,
Hmm.
because in New Jersey we have partners. Do you guys have relays for throwing field events? In other
No, I've
states?
never heard of that.
Okay, so in New Jersey, when you have track, I'm trying to think if it's only an indoor thing, but we used to have relays, like just like you have Penn relays or county
Hmm.
relays or whatever. And every year when they would have the throwing relays, they didn't have enough people. So for indoors, I think it's 2, and outdoors it's 3, or maybe it's
Okay.
always 3, but they didn't have enough. So she begged me to join the team
Hmm.
because in junior high, I won the softball throw at like our little champion meet. So I joined because
Hmm.
I think, is track during basketball season?
Indoor. Yeah.
Indoor. I didn't do basketball. Yeah. So
Okay.
there was that. And I broke the record on my first throw. So it was down. It was, you're not leaving. I was there for a meet or two, and they were
No.
like, nah.
I gotta ask, do you remember what that your very first throw was?
It was probably like 35 something.
Okay.
It wasn't huge. It was, but it broke the freshman record, not the school. Like it
Okay.
was the furthest a freshman had ever thrown. Um,
My bad. On your
I,
first try.
I I don't know. I don't know if it broke the school record. It might have, because
Hmm.
I had the school. I was just the one breaking it for a long time
Breaking your own record. Yeah.
in high
Um,
school. Yes.
I do know in college you threw 55 feet. So
Did
that
I?
is, love it how you're like, did I? I love numbers. I
Yeah.
always remember, and I was looking like, yeah, but even like to this day, when I'm watching like these big, big names on TV in the Olympics, I always keep like, for some reason, I've always known that you were like through like 55 feet. So that was always like my frame of reference. Cause I remember when you did it, I was standing right there watching, and it was like, um,
It's hard to remember because you have your regular meets, you have your Big Ten meets, then you have open meets that don't count as collegiate. So I just
oh yeah,
keeping up,
yeah,
and they don't. Yeah. So keeping up with the
it's true.
numbers was, I couldn't tell you, even with that plaque in the house, what my weight throw was. And then it has an asterisk next to it because there was all that controversy with the implements back then changing.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny, man. So just drag there because they needed an extra body, and you could throw.
Yeah.
So you just went out there and you just tossed it.
Yeah. Pretty
Did you
much.
even spin or glide, or did you just stand there and
Nah.
like literally
Just
just
yeah, just a side throw.
just a side throw? In college, were you a glider?
I was a spinner
Or so you
in
spinner?
college.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
You were a spinner. So for people that don't know track, how do you choose between, because like a glider is you just kind of go forward, throw it.
Mhm.
Spinner, you spin around a few times and got to remember where you are, and then you got to throw it. How do you choose which
Yes.
one you become?
Well, first, if you're freakishly tall, they tell
Mhm.
you you got to stay in the circle. And I was running out of space. It's not a Deacon-sized circle. You know.
True,
But
true.
in high school, I got a new coach, and we were doing glide, and he brought it up, and I can't remember when I specifically switched, but at some point I did blow my knee out. So it
Mm,
might be that no, because then I would have put all my weight on my left knee, which was bad. We might have switched before I blew my knee out and
okay.
then just stuck with it because gliding, when you make that jump, you're like landing on it. And the
Mm,
torque, I was better at torque.
got it.
Yeah.
It seems like most of the top shot putters now are all spinners.
You
I
get more
don't really.
momentum going.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I feel like watching Olympics, World Championships, maybe a decade ago, it was kind of a mixed bag. It seems like
Mhm.
now everyone is spinning. Again, sports getting better, shoes are probably getting better.
Shoes. Jeez. I didn't even have shoes that fit. I hope they're better.
What size shoe do you wear?
I'm a 15 men's, and I'm or a four a four a 14 4E, which is like
Oh my
four
god.
extra wide. Yeah, the feet are huge.
Okay,
They
Clemson, they
haven't
haven't
changed at
changed at
all.
all.
I see Clem's on it.
The thrower struggle. Oh, I love it. Hey, I don't know. Spice got better.
Yeah,
So,
I
so
think the
you,
shoes only went up to like a 13. I used to like curl my toes over and just jam them in there. I'm still paying for it.
Jesus. Ugh. So you become this shot put phenom, right? Just,
Mhm.
walking off the street, the best there ever was, whatever. How did you choose Penn
Should be my
State?
hype man.
Whatever.
Bring you on the road.
This is what I do. Why do you
Yeah.
think I only bring people on the show that I want to hype up? So,
Well, thank you. I'm flattered.
yeah. So what made you choose the Pennsylvania State University?
My mom said you're going to Penn State, whether you like it or not.
Oh,
And I went to Penn State.
okay.
Yeah.
So that made it easy.
Yeah.
Why'd your mom pick Penn State? Was it because it was close, or did she?
I'm not sure. They were well prior to Penn State reaching out to me. Several schools, they send in their inquiries. They want you to join, all that.
Mhm.
When I was at nationals, they probably got the most attention from her because D walked up to me and couldn't speak to me, but pointed at me and handed the
Mm.
info to my coach and was like, I'm serious. And yeah. So my coach was happy with Penn State because of all the other people that tried to do a workaround or go to me directly. You weren't even supposed to talk
Mhm.
to me at that time. I think I was
Right.
a sophomore or something.
Sophomore. Mhm.
So they respected Dee's approach.
Mm.
Coach Dana Wanger.
Yep, absolutely. She was a phenomenal coach.
Yes.
Yes, you guys had quite the awesome group.
Really
Awesome.
lucked out with that.
Yeah, she was an incredible coach. Okay, so you end up at Penn State. Did you enjoy your time there? Did you tell me? I need to know. Because if your mom told you to go there,
It was
because I mean,
it was a
it's like you live in New York City. You're a Brooklyn guy,
yeah,
right? I mean,
yeah.
I know I had a huge hard time adjusting to life there. So yeah, how was your adjustment?
Um it was definitely a culture shock when I moved there. It was a mixed bag. I can say Penn State holds their athletes to a higher regard than a lot of other schools. So there was
Absolutely.
discipline, there was good resources, there was great education. I met amazing people that I still talk to this day. I was on the phone texting with Kate 48 hours ago, where you're always talking.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, it's what you make of it. You get out of university what you put into it. And sometimes I think I put a lot more into it than I got out,
Mm.
not being supported.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Other times I'm happy with it. Other times, you know, when the arthritis is kicking in, I'm mad. So I still to
Yeah.
this day can't even tell you how I feel about it. My recruiting process wasn't the same as everybody else's. So I kind of
Mm-hmm.
came in, uh, you know, behind the cart,
Okay.
trying to play catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I and it's like funny because I speak very highly of my time at Penn State too, right? Like
Mhm.
I feel like we had a great team, loved my coaches, Coach Johnson, seeing where he's doing now with his athletes, it's like feels like a pleasure, you know what I mean? Like what a
Yeah.
gift I got to be coached by him. But I will say if the
I don't know that
transfer
I ever
portal,
met Coach Johnson.
nope, because he came in right after you left.
Yeah, that was after Jeff.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. But I also think if the transfer portal was around when I was there, I probably would have left, because
Mhm.
we are just in the middle of nowhere in
Yeah,
farm country, in
yeah.
agriculture school. And it was, Penn State was kind of my, oops, I don't have a backup school. So yeah, it's like a very interesting thing. Cause I'm like, yeah, go Penn State. We are blah, blah, blah. Oh yeah. If I could have transferred, I would have. Like, oh, you know, because
I
it's
think
like,
my,
yeah.
if I'm not mistaken, like where I wanted, like my dream, like, oh, I want to go here, was I think Stanford.
Mm,
And we went on an unofficial visit because we had family out in California, so we stopped by. And even on our way out and contacting them, we weren't given the time of day when
mm,
I was like a sophomore, and they were like, or maybe I was still a freshman in high school. I can't remember, but we went out very early,
mm-hmm.
and they basically were like, "You're not Stanford material."
Mm.
Fast forward later, guess who our head coach ended up being? The same person. So, like I said, like me coming in, there was already animosity and there was back and forth. So I always kind of felt like I was fighting my way out of stuff to make a name for myself there.
Yeah, that individual had animosity with a lot of people.
Yeah.
And you came out hard and you won Big Ten's indoor and outdoor your senior year. So
Lead
all
by
the haters,
example.
exactly. I love it. I love it. So our Penn State time, I know you threw a little bit. How was it? Did you only throw at one Olympic trial, or did you throw at some other world U.S. championships? I actually don't remember how long
um,
your post-collegiate career was on for.
yeah. So my collegiate career coincided with the Olympics. So I lucked
Mm-hmm.
out in terms of that being the end of the year, so that when I competed in the Olympic trials, I at least got to run off the gas fumes of my senior year of
Mm-hmm.
college.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, as a pro athlete, I would have had to pay for all of that. I would have to do all the
Yep.
travel on my own. But because a lot of those open meets were under the umbrella for some college folks as open meets, I was able to qualify for the 2004 Olympic trials. I competed in those. We were where in California.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, yeah. Senior year kind of blurs together.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so was that the last meet you competed in?
No, I competed in the Olympic trials. I traveled to Greece. I did not make the team. I
Mm-hmm.
traveled around there during the Olympics and watched some of the games. Came home, trained for about 6 to 9 months, competed in like one or two open things, and bowed out.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
So I
Was
competed in a
yeah.
few what would be considered professional meets only
Mm-hmm.
for up to like 9 months.
Okay. Was that more of a personal choice, like you were ready to get on with like the next chapter of your life, or was it like,
Yes,
you
and
didn't have enough backing?
I had some soul searching to do, especially while I was
Mm-hmm.
in Greece, and decisions to make
Mm-hmm.
uh, with regard to how I was going to live my life.
Yeah.
Am I going to have an out open life in this very restrictive sport
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't cater to people like me? And now it's opening up more, and it does. Um, am I going to continue to deal with all this food issue stuff of having to be as big as possible and as strong as possible? And Clem will even tell you at a certain point, I couldn't put my arms down. I'm walking through doorways and breaking watches, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and dealing with the public with that. Ask any,
Mm-hmm.
you've had a bodybuilder on here. That's one that
Yep.
I watched. What is it
Yeah.
like going into public when you are a female presenting bodybuilder, and how
Mm-hmm.
people treat you? And people were so fat phobic, and in the sport, a lot of times fat phobia is also anti-black, and they don't want to admit that. There's a lot of microaggression, so I had to really decide what was best for me,
Mm-hmm.
sticking in a sport that I liked, I loved, uh, but didn't welcome me. So
Mm-hmm.
also I had to consider, what was I going to do for a coach? My
Mm-hmm.
options were to stay at Penn State like other people did and continue training with an awesome, amazing coach, or I had to start over. And when I left, I went back to my private coach, and he was aging. The 4 years that, I was away at college really put a toll on him, because he wasn't being as active and going to track meets and stuff. And I had to train myself and decide, was I going to go to another university? Like, we had a couple throwers at our university who followed the male coach over and had to
Mm-hmm.
like live at Penn State. And I just saw how they lived, and it wasn't
Yeah.
really for me. Yeah. What do you do? Start over with a new coach that you took. I took 4 years to, you know, uh, find trust in this other coach and build a
Mm-hmm.
bond with them, and now I have to start all over. It wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah. It's that definitely kind of, kind of knowing your story, that kind of touched me, of thinking of like you not feeling welcome, right? You not feeling included by our sport. And just like you said with Rashada, my bodybuilder, like, yes, like, people look at women that are super large, like there's so much more, rather than a large man, like, oh, that's a linebacker, right? Like
Yeah,
this or this. But like a larger woman is like, oh, yikes, who would want to date her? What is she doing? So
yeah. And back then,
it's
when you said something about it, it was like you were the crazy one. And
mm-hmm,
now today, we're almost still in the same position, which is tragic 20 years later. However, yeah, I mean, look at Raven Saunders. I don't think that 20 years prior, that wouldn't have happened. If I had
true.
and it's a shame, because it's like you leave high school and they kind of beat all the individualism out of you, even though it's an individual sport that adds up
Mm-hmm.
as a team. If I had shown up to practice with green hair, would have been over. If
Yeah.
another teammate had done it, maybe not. But if I had done it, you can't even wear the long socks. You can't wear this. You can't wear that. I don't think a lot of people realize how much they govern your bodies in track and field the same way they
Mm-hmm.
do gymnastics.
They do. Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say it like that, like, shit.
Yeah. I mean, I
Yeah.
remember back then uniform codes and uniform
Mm-hmm.
rules, and
Yep.
them hyper focused on the throwers and little things like a new rule coming out that the emblem on your socks can't be stretched to 2 inches. You're targeting larger people when you say that, and you can't deny that that's what they were doing. Uh,
Yet
because originally,
they give us brand name socks with emblems on them to throw
yes,
in.
yes. So the original rule was, oh, emblems can only be a certain size. Your Nike swoosh, we were sponsored by Nike. They didn't want corporations taking advantage. But then when you changed it and said, and if you stretch your clothes and they're too big, you'll be penalized, that's when you're deliberately targeting certain people.
Right, because you're not providing a size that larger people can wear.
No.
Yet, as we know, on a track team, there's everything from our teeny tiny little distance runners that you could
Yes.
fit in the carry-on to our shot putters. And we have the whole spectrum of bodies, shapes, everything on a track team in order for a track team to be successful.
Absolutely.
So why are we taking this one section and not making shoes big enough for you? Not making socks big enough for you. Like, this
In
makes no sense.
in the probably 5 years of my track and field career, I don't think I've ever had a uniform that fit. I never had a single pair of shoes that fit properly.
Mm-mm.
Yeah.
And how are you supposed to feel your best and compete your best when
Yeah.
you're not
Stretching out your uniform the
when
night
you're not
before so you don't look
comfortable?
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you're not even comfortable. Not even in your own skin, but
Mhm.
in these restrictive clothing that they give you. Because yeah, it's oh man, like after I graduated, they started giving sprinters the like little cute boy shorts, and I'm like,
Oh no.
I hated wearing those little
The
bikini
brief.
bottom, the
Yes.
little
That's
spankies.
a thing where we look back and we could say why, but it's still, like I say, it's still going on. I just saw an article about a soccer team where they had the team wearing white shorts, and they finally, like, because they had a female coach, were like, no more white shorts with uniforms. What the heck? Why would you
Right.
do that
Why
in
are
women's sports?
women wearing white
You know,
soccer shorts?
I remember Stanford had like white spandex pants, shorts at one time, and I was like, no, that is awful. Who thought of that?
No,
Your other
yeah.
color is crimson. What were you thinking? Like,
This makes so much sense, but
yes.
flip it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All these things that for women's bodies too, like the fact that they're just now starting to do like more research on sports bras for women.
Yeah.
It's just
That
like
was horrible for
Jesus.
me. Jeez. I couldn't
Yeah.
even find one that fit.
Man, yeah. I mean, if you can't find a uniform that fit.
Well, I
So
finally
Greece.
found like one company that made them,
Mhm.
and I think they still exist. It was called the No Resort Bra. It was like for
Okay.
people who had no resorts left. And it was like a straight jacket that went straight down the front. And yeah, I wore that for years. Yeah,
Sexy? No, but you have
absolutely.
no other option. This is you're gonna give us your money
Yeah.
because you got no other options. Oh man. So going on your trip to Greece, kind of finding yourself, deciding of you actually what was that like when you kind of made that decision to truly be yourself? Like, kind of, is it just like an overnight like light bulb moment? Is it kind of dabble your toe in it?
I
How
could
how
tell
does
you
that
it's a
go?
light bulb moment. I could tell you it's flipped the switch, but at the end of the day, it's a journey. I'm still on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Everyone's on it, and we could pretend that we have it all figured out, but we don't. That's
Okay.
also part of growing up. It's not just part of
True.
my transition. Yeah.
True. 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 But how was it when you moved to like Brooklyn? Like kind of going from that state college type
Uh,
experience.
I didn't go straight to Brooklyn. I did go
Mm-hmm.
back home for a year and a half, maybe two. Then I moved to New York. I
Mm-hmm.
moved because of work. The commute was hindering my networking for
Mm-hmm.
work because everything in entertainment is word of mouth. You're on a gig, everyone hangs out after, and then the whole crew ends up on the next gig. And when
Mm-hmm.
you're like peacing out, not drinking with everybody and driving home an hour and a half, you don't really get to meet all and actually hang out with all the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I moved to Brooklyn, um, and spent my formative years here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you're never gonna leave, are you?
Oh, I'm leaving.
Oh, you're
I swear.
leaving.
Yeah, I promise.
Oh, you swear.
I'm not growing old here. It's not a city for old people. This city hates disabled and old people.
This is true.
I
Yeah.
have to walk up to my nearest subway station. I have to walk up about 4 flights of stairs.
Whew,
So yeah, it's fun on low mobility days.
man. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
But you spent, I mean, the work that you've done, and because I know you're you've kind of transitioned a little bit more out of the entertainment industry, but
Yes.
you've had some pretty well-known gigs, worked on some very cool shows that I watch. What are some of your favorite memories of working in the entertainment industry?
Oh my gosh, favorite memories.
Mm-hmm.
One that I always talk about that I enjoyed was D.L. Hughley's Endangered Species List.
Mm-hmm.
That was a special we did, and we did some filming in Tennessee and other parts of the country. And the premise was that Black folks should be on the endangered species list, but he kind of went through and showed how they are being attacked by their environment, how they're being attacked by government policies, and it's literally killing them off. This was before all the hashtags started.
Mm.
This was, before we got all these mock documentary shows now, like you have Jordan Kepler and all of them doing
Mm-hmm.
those it was before all of that. So it was something to be really proud of. Gosh, I just remember the story of like being in Tennessee and meeting this family. And it was like some real Aaron Brockovich type stuff where the water on their property got poisoned and the town literally sent letters to everyone else saying, don't drink the water, and sent letters to them telling them, your water's perfect, drink it. Yeah. Yeah.
Whoa.
It goes way deeper than that. There was like an animal kill shelter on their property of land they donated. They bust in water for the dying dogs, but didn't tell the family about the water problem. So like working on stuff like that, like documentaries and even like History Channel type stuff is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
I've done reality shows. I've done usually if I'm on a movie, it's usually for art department stuff.
Mm-hmm.
For TV, I do camera.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know you've worked on 90 Day Fiance. Like, I can't help it. I know you give me this whole thing of stuff. I'm like, ooh, 90 Day Fiance. I can't help it. I still watch it and all the spinoffs. It's like my.
And I've done a ton of Food Network stuff. I like that stuff.
That's Clem. Clem watches the Food Network. I refuse to watch the Food Network because if I can't taste it, I don't care. Like
I do a lot of post work with them, and I've probably done like 15 seasons of Worst Cooks in America or something like that. It's
amazing. Clem's like, yes,
yeah,
I know. I'd be like at Clem's house, and I'm like, no, we can't watch this because if I can't try it, I don't want to know about the food. Like it just doesn't. I can't get behind it. I cannot get behind the Food Network.
It is both amazing and the worst thing to ever happen to food.
Just watch it while running, Clem. What's wrong with you? A lot.
That's something I would do. Yeah.
Okay, that's
She's
funny.
Addicted to TV, just like me.
Just just addicted to the Food Network. Oh man. So, but one thing, and kind of switching, where we're at now, let's talk about your organization, Queer Global. Yeah, how you started it. I mean, how it's going, how you met your co-founder. Darcy's her name, right?
Yes, Darcy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I already knew Darcy, and Darcy does stuff with fashion and owns vintage shops. So we already knew each other and came together on this, but it really stemmed out of my own health stuff and dealing with living in New York and finding resources. And it was just dragging me down. It was exhausting. Little things like finding a doctor who previously dealt with LGBTQ stuff and finding a sports therapist who was, and finding this and finding that. And when I was looking for things, you can't just Google like doctor who's queer and find magically what you need. You have to like shake some trees. And that involved a lot of going into LGBT groups, listservs, still on mailing groups because our tech was so old in the community at that point. And in order to get help, people were more than willing to give suggestions. People were always giving links. They would lead to dead places. Someone would give me a link. Oh, you have to go to this board. They have all this information about finding, a physical therapist. I would go there. Half of the links would be dead. Didn't go to a site. Half the doctor's offices were no longer there. So we really wanted a place where all the information was being updated.
Mhm.
A lot of these places lose funding, they disappear. The places that help the most marginalized people have the smallest budgets to work with. So really it started as, how do we get a platform where this information is being updated, but
Mhm.
also the platforms where people are talking about them on social media are constantly changing. If you go to Tumblr, people were posting all types of stuff, and then Tumblr imploded. All of those links are gone. All that information, all those threads disappeared when people's screen names got cold. Uh,
Mm.
so things like that, people left Facebook. There was an exodus for a while. People are leaving Twitter right now. All of those links that are attached to your profile that maybe you put up and people constantly go back to, they're gone. So we really wanted to unify it globally and also just make it a place that's easy to contribute to.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that. That's definitely like where I live, in Chicago. I'm right by Boys Town, so
Mhm.
walking down the street, I see pride flags everywhere, and we have all these things, but it's you know when you're not in this neighborhood, how do you know to find, like finding a gender affirming doctor, finding
Right?
someone that's not going to judge you. And it's definitely a tough thing. Like, I was watching 90 Day Fiance, um, on
Which
90
one?
Day, the new one, 90 Day the Other Way.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you've known, there's a trans man on there, and he has moved to Columbia to be with his soon to be wife. I believe they're
Columbia,
getting married.
Missouri,
No, Columbia, the
the country.
country.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah,
I
Medellin,
don't know which
Colombia.
one's worse for them. So I've been to
Right?
Columbia, Missouri. Yeah.
Yeah, and it, and they showed him going to a doctor's office, because he was interested in getting top surgery. He hadn't had
Mhm.
top surgery before, because he was like, my boobs were small, so I never did. But and he was just talking about how much paranoia he had going to the doctor, how much anxiety he had. And then he goes to this doctor, and this dude is like the coolest dude ever. He's asking him, what other surgeries he had. Okay, this and that. And it was going through, like, yeah, let's look and take. And you could just like see his face, like all that anxiety that was up there, all that stress. It just was like, huh.
Right?
And having access to that is, it's not a given.
No. And a lot of people don't understand that because
Hmm.
they just get to walk into a dentist and everything is fine. They get to
Hmm.
walk into a doctor and just something that simple is not normal for everybody else.
Hmm. Yeah, and it could be even like filling out new patient intake form, of where you have to mark what your gender is, and your
Mhm.
options are male or female.
Yes.
And that's the only one you have. And so, well, that can be a stressful type thing.
Yeah. Now
I was just
imagine going to a surgeon for your first preliminary, appointment, and you're filling in the form and that's all they have. And they're supposed to be working with transgender folks. We don't want those people, So there that happens. That really happens to people where they will go to the
Did that
doctor
happen to
and
you?
it happened to
Or-
me at more than one place. I probably saw
Damn.
4 surgeons in total.
Hmm.
But I lucked out because the surgeon I went to um, was local. There are a lot of people who have to fly around the country, but
Hmm.
I gave him a chance because a friend was also related to him. But when I went
Oh.
and had my preliminary interview and everything, I saw 3 black trans women in the waiting room, and then you
Hmm.
have to go through like 3 or 4 appointments before you even schedule your surgery.
Right.
Next one, I see more people of color. Next one, I see an Asian person. I see this. And I told him, this was one of the reasons why I went to him. And he said, I had no idea. And I was like, no, I asked around. You're the top surgeon for black people and for other people of color. He didn't even know. And he was like, well,
Hmm.
why? And I said, well, first of all, I've gone through a list of about 15 surgeons. You're the only one that has black bodies on your website
Mm,
for before and after.
mm.
It's something that simple that like makes a huge difference being
Yep.
represented, and I was worried about keloids and having bad big puffy scars, and it was
Yep.
important to me that a surgeon who was used to dealing with black skin that keloided knew what they were doing. So we talked about that, and I was like, that was a huge deal, and I think maybe you should lean into that, because when I was talking with folks in the waiting room, they were saying, no, this is the guy, all the girls go to him.
Mm. And that's so true. When you talk about the scars, because I remember reading an article, I don't know, maybe the last year or so, about how dermatology, especially, is one of those specialties where there are like no black doctors. The
I've never
medical
had a black
books,
dermatologist ever. I've been seeing one since
no.
I was 15.
Yeah, and it's like all the textbooks for school are showing, white skin. And so you have different types of skin conditions where they literally have never seen like how the different pigmentation of the skin will react to something. It's
Yeah.
these simplest damn things that, you're like obviously, like your skin color is going to react differently than my skin color. Like, wouldn't someone at some point think to study that or take a peek?
Yeah.
No,
You'd think.
you'd think, and it also goes to the whole thing of like when like you have less rates of skin cancer in the black population, but when you do get it, they're usually more advanced because they don't have all those, like when they show in magazines, like these are your moles, this is what you should look like, ABC. They're showing white skin.
Yep.
They're not showing what some of those could look like on a different color. Like what's red on me might be a different color on you.
Absolutely.
Oh.
That's why one of the big things that we try to support at Queer Global is when we're doing a lot of social media stuff, we're not doing that right now, but we
Mhm.
repost other organizations that have diversity in their advertising. If you have
Mm.
overweight people, people of color, old people, young people, and you're showing your LGBTQ, we repost all of that.
Mm. I love that. It's such a simple thing, right? But it's such a big thing.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about the simplest, like trips to the doctor, finding access to these things that people can't do. Um, and so, what is your guys's, like, when you're looking forward to future things, like with Queer Global? Are you looking to expand? Are you just in New York City right now? Or are you looking to expand countrywide?
Um, we are everywhere. So
Okay.
we take any location you can work with us. We are primarily run by volunteers who contribute to our code and to our work. We
Mm,
also have some interns. We have had people as far as Ghana and Barbados and Mumbai contribute. Uh, Two of them actually became team members for several months and worked with us. People kind of revolve in and out because some people are like, hey, I've got 3 months between jobs. I'd like to give you 3 months of my time. And they'll join our meetings, come in, contribute, and bounce. So we really tried during COVID because the second we announced what we were doing, the world shut down. Excuse me, we had to become completely remote. So
mhm.
in learning about open source coding and stuff like that, I really was like, we need to be open source altogether. So we are an open source creative and development platform. So you can join, contribute by making a bunch of social media posts and just bounce if you only have 2 weeks of your time to give us. So
Mhm.
that's really helped us through COVID keep the wheels running, is volunteer power.
Absolutely. And talk about some of maybe the struggles, the frustrations. I'm thinking of one particular interview that you told me about, an email.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, when after we announced what we wanted to do, we were approached by a well-known social media group. They wanted to interview us. They did, and then through the majority of the interview, after getting the basics out of us, every question went back to the sex scene in New York and sex work and kinky parties and this and that. And we were just sitting there like so disappointed, because no matter what we would do to like change the subject and go back to queer global, they just
Mhm.
kept focusing on sex that had absolutely nothing to do with our mission, what we were doing. Yeah.
And you sent me a picture from you guys during that
And
interview
you
with
can
both
see
of
our
you.
faces.
You
Like,
were
I
just
love
like,
that photo.
I mean, it was like I should have like put it in here to post it. I didn't even think about it because it was.
Yeah, I wasn't
And
sure if you switch back and forth to photos, so that's why I gave you that crazy photo dump of like 20
yeah,
photos.
I know. No, I loved it. I loved it. But like, why do you think that is, like, that we still haven't gotten past that, where people hear, anything having to do with LGBTQ plus community and they still just want to talk about sex? Like,
Because at the
why?
end of the day, it all boils down to, I guess, people's fascination with the LGBTQ plus community and trans folks always comes down to genitalia. And it's so weird and it's so ludicrous when you actually think about it. We divide everybody into two groups based on
Mhm.
genitalia. We identify people based, like, it's in my underwear. Why do you care? But that's what it always comes down to. When somebody finds out, they immediately start asking invasive questions, and they always boil down to sex or genitals.
Mhm.
It's the straights that are obsessed with them, not us. They're forcing us to be defined by them, so it's
It's
really
true.
not us.
Yeah, this is uh what's her name? Laverne Cox. Who was
Yes.
it? Oprah that was interviewing her. I don't know if you remember that interview from a few years back, where she tried to ask her about oh, like, tell me about, like, uh what she a post op. I think she was trying to ask it, and
Oh
she was
god.
like, "Why are you asking me about my genitalia?"
Yes.
Like,
And
it
that's
is.
and that's what it always comes down to in terms of people's curiosity is
Mhm.
when you're asking someone if they're gay, you're asking them what they do in the bedroom. And no one goes up to straight people and asks them what positions they like randomly, but people walk up to people that they think are gay and ask them. And at
This
the
is true.
like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Like, oh, are you a top or a bottom? It's like, that's
are
not
you?
appropriate.
Are
Yeah,
you?
are you? Yeah, you tell me, you first.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's a weird, I had this conversation with my dad, I want to say about two years ago. So I'm from Ann Arbor. My
Mm.
parents are pretty much, liberal hippies. But we were talking, and my dad wanted to know why the word queer is used again, right? Because he was saying back when he was a kid, it was a very derogatory term, and so, at this point he was like, I don't feel comfortable, using that term. Like, why is it? And I explained to him in a couple different ways. One was being, when you talk about like homosexual or heterosexual, you're putting sex in it, and you're putting that focus on there, whereas queer, you're kind of doing the umbrella, right? You're kind of
Hmm.
taking that part of it out of there. And then I think what really kind of clicked for him is, I was talking about my friend Brian Michael Smith, who is on Lone Star
Yeah.
911, first openly
Wait, are you
Black
actually
trans
friends with
man.
him?
Yeah, I went to high
I've
school
met
with
him
him. He was
too.
on my track team.
We don't all know each other, but I have met him years ago. Because
Yeah,
we had a mutual friend and we ended up oh, this is so gay. We ended up at Fire Island together.
don't be a stereotype.
I know that sounds so cliche, but that's, yeah, that's
Yeah,
hilarious.
so yeah, he was. We were high school teammates together, and then he threw at Penn State when
Okay.
we were over at Penn State. But I was. He's married to a woman, and I asked my dad. I was like, "All right, Dad, take Brian. He's a trans man. He's married to a woman. If we're just doing things like homosexual, heterosexual, what does that make him? You know?" And before, is he a heterosexual now? Would he even homosexual there? And it was kind of like, oh, let's just when you call the word queer, it all of a sudden takes all these weird nuances out of it.
It does, and for everyone, it's different. For some people, queer is more political. For some people, queer is about queering gender. It's always been different, but a lot of people lately have been like, I don't like that word. What? Who started using that word? Started? In it. If we were using queer in 2004, it's not a new word because back then, you know what I mean? Like, look how more advanced we are with language in this country and describing people in a more positive way. Queer has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
It's not new. It's you're hyper focused on in a different part of our community. And I don't think people want to admit that.
Very true. Very true. I will accept, but I will say, like, yeah, you're right. Around 2004, that's probably when I started hearing the term again. When I first moved to Chicago, I was like, wait, that used to be, and I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah.
I think it was a much more easier word to reclaim. Because I know a lot of people say it's a slur, but I think it's been out of rotation as a slur for a long time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because it was like my dad was thinking of it. He's late 60s, so people late 60s.
No one's ever 70s. Yelled queer at me.
Yeah, this is
unless they were like in a 1930s Studebaker, and they're like queer.
They're like, hey, yeah, how are you? Like, no, I meant to insult you. Oh, hey. Yeah, that's funny though. Like, that makes sense that you've met Brian because of it's only so many Black trans men that were in New York City, right, working in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, and it was in passing, and then later I saw him on TV years later and was like, is that the same? And I called my friend. I was like, yes, you don't remember? Like, we hung out, and I was like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I will say, so did you watch the Disclosure documentary on Netflix? It came out during COVID. It was
then I most likely watched it, and it's not in my brain anymore.
No problem.
A lot of things happened during COVID.
I hear you. Yeah, so this was a documentary. It was kind of going about the history of trans representation.
I know that Laverne Cox was in it.
Yeah, Laverne Cox was in it.
Yeah, I remember seeing part of hers, but I didn't retain it all.
Okay, no problem. Yeah. So Brian was in it, and it touched me because when you watch people do documentaries and you watch people talk about like, oh, I struggled with this, I struggled with that, and you kind of think about like, okay, back then they were probably struggling, right? They were probably outwardly sad, they were probably this. Brian was so popular, so funny, so it was like this person that I had in my head from high school, and to know that they were struggling and no one knew, you know what I mean? It was like, wow, that really hit me, to think about someone can really keep something in and just present. Cause you always think, oh, they're struggling, but you're like, no, I had no idea.
Yeah. We're still doing, some census within the community. And larger groups are still doing surveys. They're not always accurate because they, again, don't always have the language that's inviting the people to answer the right questions. But I think the Trevor Project says that 73% of LGBTQ plus youth report that they feel anxiety over it, and then it drops down to almost 60% for depression. And then it drops down to, I don't know if it's the whole community, but with trans folks, the suicide rate is hovering at 40%.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then, we look at like what our southern states are doing right now.
Yeah.
It's, how do you stay optimistic in this type of political climate? When we see like these obvious steps backwards happening.
When we see these steps backwards, it is difficult to stay positive, but then you've got to look at the youth and you've got to look at the people on the street that are still doing the work. If you're feeling like crap one day, go turn on a podcast. There's somebody out there still doing the work, trying to be positive, and it'll lift your spirits a little bit. But definitely seeing the youth, ooh, I'm old, seeing the babies protesting, that
Mhm.
does make a difference. You know,
Mhm.
seeing them pick up the mantle and start talk about some of these things, it helps.
Mhm. What do you do self-care wise when you feel like it's just too much to handle and you don't want to deal with it?
Ooh, self care.
Are you practicing enough self-care?
No, when are we going to get these 26-hour days that I've been hearing about? Self care, lots of TV,
Mhm.
my bike, my plants. Yeah,
Plant dad.
yeah, plant dad.
uh, so you're telling that we should ask you to self-care more and take care of yourself more.
Probably. Yes.
Probably.
More sleep, less
Mhm.
coffee, less work.
Yeah. Yeah. So, kind of going back into the sports world. On the East Coast this year, it was the first time the Boston Marathon had a non-binary category. So
Mhm.
now 5 out of the 6 major marathons have non-binary categories. And I did see the New Jersey Marathon not only had a category, and they offered prize money. So they were
Nice.
kind of, yeah, they offered $1,000.
New
Um,
Jersey, we know how to grease palms. Get in here. They want you at their marathon. They know what to do in Jersey.
Shoot, right? Yeah, that's one way to do it. Oh man, um, this was, my and I'm going a long about way to get to my point. One of my pride groups from my work, we have a countrywide circle, and I kind of shared that at the end. Where people talking about this, happened in Florida. This happened to my kid. Um, because I shared that because I thought that, when people keep talking about trans in sports, this and that, to see the running community at minimum starting to include the non-binary category and embracing it and now giving prize money, to me that was kind of like a little bit of not silver lining, but is kind of like finding the rainbow, in this massive shit storm.
Yeah,
um
it has been a massive shitstorm. There's
mhm,
no other way to describe the systematic, uh, just gutting of civil liberties for women and people over the past 2 years. Um, to see those changes made at the marathon when you also have historical photos of men attacking women in the marathon, I think that is where the huge advancement is, because
mhm.
it could have been any sport, but of all the sports, that was a good one to pick. Running,
Yeah. And
because in other sports there haven't been as many opportunities to go head to head. A woman isn't running out on a basketball court trying to get on the team. She might hide that she's a woman, but
mhm.
what was that, the Boston Marathon where they attacked her?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. It was the Boston Marathon. I don't remember the year off the top of my head, but yep, that was when they literally pulled that woman off the course, and it took the guy that
It's
pulled her,
fear.
like,
It's fear.
yeah.
I mean,
Well,
what
her
else could you
her
say
ovaries
about?
might fall out.
Yes, what else is this woman going to do to you during a ridiculous running contest? God, who runs that long?
Ugh, weirdos.
So why not just be weird together? Like, why?
Yeah.
But they attacked her out of fear because nobody wants to be the person who got beat by a woman. How dare they?
Mm.
So instead, they attacked her. But now we're in a world where I think people are starting to wake up to the idea that another person having rights doesn't take yours away. I think that's kind of pushing things more towards the forefront. 1967. Thank you, Clem.
Come on the fact check. 1967. We were pulling women off.
60 years ago.
Shit.
55. Close enough.
Yeah. I mean, it's like my parents are both alive and in high school, I think, at that point, to think of that. So, we have this now at the, marathon level. Who the hell wants to run a marathon? The crazies.
Mhm.
What things do you want to see for trans youth, for LGBTQ plus youth in the sports world?
In the sports world.
Yeah.
I'm not sure because we're all so different. You know what I mean? There's no
Mhm.
blanket answer for everyone. Every person is different. What I needed at that time was different because I wasn't
Mhm.
trans at the time. Uh, I was just a freakishly big hormonal person. Um, and there needs to be room for that too, because there isn't.
Mhm.
But yeah, I do want more space for kids. Let them pick. If that person was assigned female at birth and they want to go play football, let them play football.
Mhm.
There's no money involved, and sports are supposed to teach you how to behave in the real world. That's what else are we doing these sports for with kids? We need to take the adults out of it and the adult mindset and let the kids be kids. They want to play. We're the ones who put these stupid gendered rules on them. They're not leaving the locker room and asking to check everybody's underwear before they play. They just want to play.
This is true. I mean, there's a lot of parents out there that think their 9-year-old is going to go into Major League Baseball. Um, it's
Yeah.
wild how like parents have. Parents weren't crazy like that when we were kids, were they?
Yeah.
They
Some of them
were.
were. I think it also depends on where you're from. Like
Hmm.
football was big in my town, but we weren't a spectacular football team. So, Friday night lights wasn't going on in our town. It
Mm.
wasn't like that. So maybe yeah, I think maybe it's a sport by sport thing. I have seen people freak out over baseball and like the dads who they'll bring them to every tournament, they'll buy them every single special implement, and they will curse out the coach on the sideline because their kid didn't get an extra inning. And yeah,
Yeah, it's you look at those parents and you're like, if you took all that money that you spent on the travel team, you could have actually paid for that 4-year college scholarship you're trying to get for your kid.
don't tell them that. Then they have to do
Oh,
math.
oh man, the math be mathin'. I
Oh,
mean,
Common Core math.
yeah, right. Clem was saying she doesn't think there was such a big push and all those extras like travel teams. Yeah, it's there's like
I did travel track.
yeah,
Yeah,
going to
I
like
joined. So
AAU
when I was in
meets.
high
Mhm.
school, my I don't know what you call them. We have lots of aunts in our families when you're black, but they're not related.
Sure.
So the Coach Chubb ran our track program, and kids
Mhm.
from Franklin and South Brunswick and North Brunswick and New Brunswick, we would come together and we had our little supersonic track team, and we would travel the country by van, and our parents would pay, and we'd be gone for a week, and we'd go do AAU meets and all this stuff on the eastern coast and down south. And some of the parents were like hardcore. They would travel and meet us there, and they would drive. They were look at Kate's dad. He went to every single track meet. So there are parents who can make the time and can do it, and I support that. It's the anxiety of the screaming and the all that I'm not down with.
Right. Yeah. Because I came from a track powerhouse high school program. My
Mhm.
parents went to almost all of my meets. There might have been like one or two that they missed, but yeah, like if we had like a AAU or maybe it was USATF meet, like they went to like West Virginia, to go
Mhm.
to meets. They didn't go to some of them. They did not go to, in the summer track, but they were also like there was no push for me to, it was like, do you want to run in college? Cool. Like pick your school. You know what I mean? There was
Yeah.
no, like, you have to do this, you have to do that. Like I never felt pressure
From
from my
what I've
parents.
heard from former teammates, from friends, I think that's maybe, and this is a generalization, more of a Midwest and Southern thing.
Mm,
The big football towns, the big baseball towns that like really ride kids hard.
mhm.
Yeah. Track is a different beast. I think a lot of parents just don't know what to do with it, and they're supportive and they bring their kids to it and they're like, just run
Yeah.
faster.
Go faster. Yeah. There's also
Yeah.
not a lot of money in track. I mean, besides like, I mean, I know a lot of people try to get their kids college scholarships, but
Definitely not in the throws, I'll tell you that.
right. Yeah. But I do tell, when people ask me, sorry, Zorro, look in the camera and apologize. When people ask me about like, oh, like advice you have for someone, trying to become an athlete in school? And my advice is like, focus on academics. You know what I mean? Get your grades up. Like there's more money to be taken in academics. And if you have like really good academics, you get more doors open because there's more programs you could walk onto. There's more ways that you could get mixed scholarships. Like, do not put all your eggs in the athletic basket.
Yeah, I was
Because
definitely
it's brutal.
going into college, even prior to track in high school, I focused on academics.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time I got to college, I was already starting to get burned out. That was when I was first diagnosed with anxiety, was in college. And they were like, yeah, you have performance anxiety and you have acute anxiety. We need to back off this stuff. So academics definitely were the first one for me to get burned out in.
So yeah, Clem is saying the estimated probability of competing in a sport. Yeah. I can't look at it now, Clem, but we'll have to look. It's wild. It is so low. And it's also hard. Oh, really? 1.9% of Division One. Oh, for
What
track
is
and
that
field.
statistic for?
For the probability of athletes that compete in high school track and field to make it to D1 level, I'm assuming with a scholarship,
It's
1.9%.
1.9%.
Yeah.
Does that make us 1%ers?
I think we are 1%ers. Woo, woo. Oh man, it's tough though. It's a tough competitive environment. And I did a really good job of hiding my anxiety through college. I did not have my complete mental breakdown until I chose to wait till after college to have my complete and total mental breakdown.
Oh,
And then
nobody has time for you to have a breakdown in college. The bus leaves in 2 hours. You better be on it.
Well, I think for me, it was like track was the one thing like that was actually holding me together. So that was like the thing. And once I didn't have it, I had no idea what to do with my emotions, no idea what to do with anything. And then once I ended up in the psych ward at Northwestern, I discovered medication and it makes me feel great. Still on it today. But oh yeah. So, I'm glad to see like the way the culture shift has also been toward mental health, people talking about it now for younger kids, being more open to therapy. Back in
Hey,
my
hearing
day.
Gabby say I need a mental health day, people needed to hear it. Jeez. Could you imagine being that high upper echelon athlete and saying, I need a day, give me a moment? And people who have never done your sport before, who have never been on that level, have never been in that 1%, let alone on the Olympic level, have the nerve to do exposés and conversations and think pieces on whether you deserve a day off or not.
It's wild. It's
Every single moment of that woman's day is quantified. Every calorie, every one that is burned, and every one that goes in her body. She deserves a day off.
It's wild.
Yeah.
When you think about it, but that just kind of shows the rigidness, right? The structure that is in sports and how you are not you. It's just you are a vehicle.
You're a cog in a wheel.
Yeah. What more things, looking back at our college, we've talked about the uniforms and this and that. Are there any other, ways that you would like to see our sport of track and field evolve to become more inclusive of everyone, of shapes, sizes? What would be your future? What would be your dream to see for track and field?
My dream would be to just see an open sport. It's a sport where we are pushing the human body to its limits. Other sports, you're doing it in specific activities. You have different skills. In track, you are running. Can you take this heavy ball and throw it? It's just pushing the human body to its limit. But that also, it doesn't mean that like people shouldn't have agency over their own bodies. We've talked about Castor Semenya.
Yep.
That's not new, and people are talking about it like it's new. I literally had to pee in front of other people when I was in college, folks. Like that is a thing, and it's very big in track and field. And we've compared track to other sports. I don't think they're doing it in wrestling because they've never said that. I don't think they're doing it in gymnastics, but track and field they are, and they at my time weren't doing it evenly across the board. I would compete in a competition and then be ushered off into the bathroom and told I had to pee in a cup and the door has to be open and we have to watch your genitalia while you're doing it. So lift your shirt. And then I come out and find out that not every competitor had to do it.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's a thing. And so they can say it's not new and it's something they've done, but look at who they're targeting. Yeah.
I did not know that happened to you in college.
Yes.
I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, I only had to pee for the regular drug tests.
So they had regular drug tests, but then it was NCAA's world, not world. It happened twice before I even got to Olympic trials.
Right, where they ask you to lift up your shirt. That is. Because for me, it was only just like, I'm going to kind of peek in just to make sure that you're not, dumping someone else's urine in, but to watch it. Eek.
No, one time I did go in and left the door open. The person's supposed to stand there and they just turned around. I'm not going to say, and I come out and they just took the cup and were like, I can't believe they told me I had to do this. And it was, they sent me in with one of our trainers to do it because I think they didn't even have a woman to send into the bathroom because it was all male officials at the time.
Shocker.
Yeah.
Shocker. More representation in our sport needed. Men, women, everyone. And not old white men running everything. Great. I would love that. So looking at, kind of final question of the evening, looking forward to 2023, almost blacked out what year it was, into 2024, what is on the horizon for you personally?
For me personally, doing more work with Queer Global, expanding on that. We didn't even get into it, but I have been doing other career changes. I've been focusing on agriculture and taking.
Tell us more about that. We don't need to stop now. Tell me about that. What are you doing? That's right. You told me you're doing ag, and I didn't even touch it. What are you doing there?
Yeah, I figure Clem's brain is probably going to explode. I went to an ag university, never took a single course in anything, and now I'm interested in it and learning about permaculture and agriculture systems. I went out to a grazing conference this past summer in Missouri. Been learning about all kinds of exactly. Her typing is caught up to us. Yes, Clem. Yeah, I'm an ag nerd now.
I love. What are you planning on doing with all that knowledge base that you have?
Eventually, I would like to do my own thing where I'm kind of branching out into it now, but property management for larger scale property. In terms of rejuvenating land that has fallen to the wayside, especially a lot of people inherit land and they don't know what to do with it and they're overwhelmed with it and they just let it go to waste. And I would like to fix hunting properties and build ponds and plant trees and bring value to your land, but turn it into a food forest, not just a giant field that has no trees. Yeah.
That is really awesome. I love that. I was not, yeah.
My family thinks I'm crazy.
Wait, who are you? Yeah, this is the type of thing that I would expect Clem to say that she was, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I've been to
sure, in Brooklyn, I'm going to do this.
I think I've been to 4 farming conferences in the past year. I was on the board of this farm I was volunteering at for a year. I've done an apprenticeship on a farm. I represent 2 farms at a farmer's market every week. It's kind of crazy. Yeah. I start during COVID, some neighbors and I started growing, and then I made a little micro farm in the back, and then it expanded, and then I was gifted some space somewhere, so I'm growing all over, and now I'm putting in like like a quarter acre plot out in New Jersey. I've been working on for the past couple weeks.
Oh my God, amazing. Now, in the farming community, do you see anyone that looks like yourself?
uh,
I don't know, I had to ask it.
it's hit or miss. You will find some
Okay.
folks, but that is also why now I'm in it, and I'm like, why did I never think about this as a world I wanted to be involved with? Which is funny. I mowed lawn. I did landscaping in high school. I was a park ranger when I came out of college. I forgot to tell you that. I left Penn State and I was a park ranger for like 3 or 4 years in New
You know what? I
Jersey.
think I knew that. Now that you're saying that, that's like clicking something in my mind. I think I knew that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
doing that, and then I just was like, I have this degree I'm paying for the rest of my life. Why don't I go into film and television? I moved to New York. But yeah, I think the disconnect of the Black community and farming is kind of why I didn't dive in.
Mhm.
By the community, it's kind of looked down upon, and it's also something that being connected to the land is very important and something we've always been involved with, but it isn't really supported as much by this country until maybe this administration, the USDA, finally admitted they were actually involved with practices that were detrimental to the Black community,
Mm.
not giving loans, giving subsidies to other farms, things like that.
Dang. That,
Yeah.
that is really well. Okay, I know what you're going to be talking to Clem about later. So
Corn.
just she's like, I'm sure she's already like typing up something like so excited. Oh man,
Clem, I do know what a columbine is now.
I don't know
A
what that is.
combiner. We
What is
had this.
that?
We way back in college, we ended up doing something where they had athletes go into the community for schools for one day, and these little
Mm.
children were talking about what they like to do, and this kid was like, I like columbining, and we just froze, and it was like me, I think it was me, Collie, and Connie, and possibly Clem,
Uh,
and we thought he was saying columbining like shooting schools, because Columbine had happened like a year or two before, but he was
mm-hmm.
talking about getting on a tractor.
Oh, okay. I
A
love it.
combiner.
I love
I
that.
think
Oh
Clem
my
was
god.
with me when that
She
happened.
said,
Yes,
yeah, she
she
said,
said
I
she
remember
remembers this.
this.
And we froze in front of the class, and we're like looking at the exits. And then the teacher stood up and was like, he did not say columbining like a and we were like, okay, thank you.
Woo, woo. Yeah, woo. Where's your social worker?
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, a good old rural Pennsylvania.
He's like, I like columbining.
Woo. Oh, bless that little kid's heart. And I hope he's out there working on a farm somewhere, having a good,
Yeah,
good, good old time. Oh,
absolutely.
so Clem said we're doing non-GMO soybeans this year, food grade for Japan. Huh, look at
Nice.
that. I guess you'll have to come out to Ohio with me when I go visit Clem. I have gone to visit her. I have seen the farm. Uh,
When are you
so
headed out?
I don't know when I'll be out there next because when we're going to Ohio, we're going to go to Cincinnati, but we'll have to do
Nice.
a little visit to Mecca, Ohio. It's crazy because you voted me and my farm butt off the island like
Yeah,
200 times my freshman year. This, yeah, probably. I mean, you know
probably.
why.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, I love this so much. Listening to, and we talk about. I'll rephrase my question moving forward 2023. Besides your agriculture, besides this, what else do you
Besides
have
my
on the
agriculture,
horizon?
what do I have on the horizon? That's all I have for me on the horizon. For
Mhm.
the future of sports, I believe up until last year, 2022, there were 36 out open trans folks who had ever competed in NCAA sport. I want to see more. So
Hmm.
I'm looking forward to that.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. It has been a
I
very,
appreciate you having me. This has been
yeah,
fun.
intelligent, enlightening, fun conversation. And on that note,
this has been a Chicago Clubhouse Network production.
bye.
Bye.